Well, you were able to make it a game for a half. Our Seahawks fought hard and hung in there with the San Francisco 49ers for a half before we got into the third quarter and then in the fourth quarter, and the Niners were able to run away from our Seahawks in this wild card matchup, 41-23, beating our Seahawks for the third straight time this year, and indeed it does look like the pathway is set for the Niners to potentially make a Super Bowl run. The game started out a little bit rough for your Seahawks offense as two straight 3-and-outs came out with some very conservative game planning, just going to try to run the ball and get by. The Niners on the other side of it really took it to the Seahawks defense right from the jump, and they were able to put up some of those early points. Seahawks showed some pretty good resiliency, bouncing back, getting into the depths of that first quarter and second quarter, starting to get some drives moving. Geno Smith was able to make a beautiful, beautiful throw to DK Metcalf. It's 3rd and 3. You've got the San Francisco 49ers for the third time in that game showing a stack front on a 3rd and short situation. The Seahawks coaching staff recognized that. Geno recognized that, understood he was going to get DK one-on-one on the outside. He doesn't get that matchup a lot. So when you do, go take your shots, go take your chance. And Geno threw an absolutely beautiful ball to DK Metcalf up the sidelines that DK was able to run in for a touchdown. Metcalf on the day I felt like was money throughout. You indeed could say he had one of his better days as a pro, period. 10 catches, 136 yards. He was really steady in what he was applying on the outside there, really giving them a bit of a difference maker on the outside early on in this game to keep pace with the San Francisco 49er offense. You got in the second half. The Niners got the ball back to begin the second half. They drove right up the football field, and that Hawks defense continued to just run roughshod right through the unit, get a touchdown. And as you would come out of the half with a 17-16 lead on the back of a 56-yard kick by Jason Myers at the end of half to put you up, you then found yourself right back behind the team again, and the Seahawks offense at that point had kind of run out of a little bit of its magic. It got up the football field on that drive, but then Geno had a very key fumble at that point, which then allowed the game to kind of shift. The Niners sort of took it from there and then just ran away from it. There was another interception by Geno later on, but at the end of the day, this game really comes down to the defensive performance by your Seattle Seahawks. And beyond the defensive performance, it comes down to something that any of you guys who've been watching my channel or following my channel will hear as no surprise. The schematic failings, once again, showed up in this game. The philosophy of this defensive coaching staff and of Coach Carroll and how they apply it on this defense in, to try to put it kindly terms, is holding this defense back and will hold us back into the future. As we go into this offseason now, there is already a debate that I can see that is starting to kind of foment between the two different camps of Seahawks being, hey, we're on the right path. Everything's beautiful. Everything's wonderful. Everything's great. We just need more talent and we'll be fine. And then there's those who say, yeah, there's some schematic problems here also that we really, really, really need to go and fix. There was a lot of people in my chat when I was doing the live stream that was pointing out Tariq Woolen and having a struggling day out there on the edge, that he was getting beat a lot. And indeed, there was one play in particular where Woolen really got beat, and it was on him, where there was a play-action pass. You got the Hawks defense really buying in on the run game, and then he's too late to get on the deep route that's going deep, and Purdy hits it over the top for a big play. That was a bad play by Tariq Woolen. But all of the other catches into Brandon Ayuk, it was, I believe, 3 catches for 77 yards, were all on the exact same route. It was an in-cutting route up the football field. And what that route does is it essentially attacks the cover 3 concepts of the Seahawks defense. You have Woolen dropping back to depth to protect against the deep ball. That's going to leave stuff then up in front of him, specifically those in-cutting routes. And you saw the Niners with Shanahan, who has a lot of familiarity with how to attack this Coach Carroll defense, go after it time and time and time again. You can upgrade all the talent in the world. You're still going to get to next year. Tariq Woolen is still going to run his coverages in the same way Carroll wants him to run it. Those completions are still going to be open like they were in this particular game. And when I walked into this game, I said, the Hawks, they got house money here. This game's a bonus game. Nobody has any expectations on this game. If you get blown out in this game, no one's going to be calling for heads or saying this guy's got to be fired. So I really felt like the Seahawks coaches need to walk into this game with a sense of let it all hang out. Don't be scared. Don't play worry. Don't play fearful. But I ask you, if you're sitting in cover 2 looks throughout the course of the game, essentially trying to take away the deep ball from Brock Purdy, are we really worried about Brock Purdy's deep ball? Shouldn't we be more squeezing down some of those shorter routes, some of those more intermediate routes? But you didn't see that today. Some of it was on the back of the fact that you were having to sell out so hard to stop the run, for even though you did devote for a lot of stuff as far as post-snap to stopping the run, they still came out of this game with 33 carries and 181 yards. McCaffrey had 15 carries and a $119 all on his own. So even having this high attention put to stopping the run, it still didn't hold things back in that realm of things. They were still very successful. And indeed, between the soft zone coverages that are able to be beat because you don't want to tighten things down, you don't want to run man-based concepts. In this game, I thought this was one with Brock Purdy. You wanted to bring stack fronts. You didn't have to bring blitzes every play, but you bring the stack fronts to confuse the rookie quarterback, the 7th round rookie quarterback. And the Seahawks today did nothing, absolutely zero, to make Brock Purdy uncomfortable. And the coaches didn't do anything to manufacture anything to make Brock Purdy uncomfortable. This Niner team that went 33 carries for 181 yards also threw for 324 yards passing. It's a little bit like a game like the Raiders where you go, okay, you didn't stop the run and you didn't stop the pass. And when it comes to this defense moving forward, certainly getting more talent in here is going to help. I'm not denying that. This defense will be improved next year if just specifically you address it with the draft capital and the money that you got to spend in free agency. But if we're looking at this team becoming eventually an elite team again, if we're looking at this team being a team that's going to compete for Super Bowls and not merely to sneak in the back door of the playoffs on a yearly basis or every other year basis or every couple year basis, but to truly be one of those teams that can compete for a Lombardi trophy. It's very hard for me to see a team that plays with such a mentality on defense of not to lose and think that you're going to win big. It seems like a mentality that'll eventually get you topping out at a certain point where you might be a good damn football team, but you're not going to be a great football team. This scheme once worked back in 2013 and 14 within a defense that's an all-time defense, a historically great defense. You're the only team in the NFL since DVOA has been created that's led the NFL in 4 straight years during that time period. Absolutely wonderful run. But that defense worked in its simplicity, in the same simplicity that you try to provide now, because you had Hall of Fame-like talent stacked across the board. You had no weak links. Everybody was above average for their position. It's very unlikely, even with all of the draft capital and money that you have to spend, that you're going to put together that assemblage of talent like you had in 2013. You need to have some schematic advantages game in and game out to some degree. The coach doesn't need to be a chess master, 4D chess. He doesn't need to be to that degree. But there's got to be some plays over the course of the game where you can see the coaching staff giving their players an opportunity to be put in positions to succeed. And when I've got Tariq Woolen always dropping back to a cover 3 look, dropping back to depth to protect against a deep ball that's not coming, that's not going to be thrown, in order so you can give up these short completions underneath, boy, does it ever get maddening. And boy, does it make me wonder a little bit about whether or not we're going to have the goods from a coaching brain trust standpoint to be able to have those advantages eventually down the road when we do become an elite team. I don't want to get lost in the forest here despite the trees. This was a successful season, and this was a fun season to watch, and this was an entertaining team, and there is a lot to build upon on this team on both sides of the ball, even with some of these defensive struggles that I speak to. But when I look at this team, I always look at this team of how do we get to a point of greatness? How do we get to a point of becoming that elite team down the line? And I can trust the process and know this might take a couple years to get there. But I have to wonder when I watch this team week in and week out, and I analyze this team week in, week out, how I don't eventually come down to thinking you're getting out coached every week. That offensive-minded coach is out coaching you. That's how you end up with Sam Darnold beating you. That's how you end up with 2 of the top 4 playmakers, the Raiders, out, and they still beat you with their other 2, and that's all they basically need over the course of the entire game. That's how you get to a game with the Detroit Lions, and you can't punt once or you're going to lose that football game. The defense has been really bad for the majority of this season, and they've been bad without little to hang their hat on. They don't stop the run. They don't prevent the big play. They don't get turnovers. They don't cause consistent pass rush, and they certainly don't tackle very well, which is something else that you got to see on bright display today. There are fixes to be had here, I think, but it's going to take them being willing to go out and adopt to the new. Coach Carroll this offseason at the NFL Combine was sitting with reporters, and he always sits with reporters at the Combine, and he said, we've been a little bit arrogant in our ways. We got to change our approach, especially as he was referencing to the defensive side of the ball. And what he was referencing was that same simplicity that I'm talking about, that same predictability that I'm talking about. Brock Purdy goes out as a rookie in a playoff game and throws for 324 yards on you on only 30 attempts because of the fact that you're simplistic defensively and you're very easy to read. Yes, he's also got Shanahan helping him along. Yes, he's also got a lot of talent stacked up across the board. Those things also help. But you did not make him uncomfortable. You did not make him the least bit nervous. He sat back there and moved that team up the football field all day long, and you couldn't do much to stop him. You only caused one single punt on the entire day from the San Francisco 49ers. And there are folks that came into my chat, and the first thing they wanted to do was to jump on Geno Smith. Well, the interception. The fumble happened. That was the game-changing turning fumble. No, it wasn't. It was a big play in the game, I'll grant you that. But if you're going to make that as the game-changing play of the game, I could just as well say that opening drive by the Niners then at the start of the second half was the game-changing play. This is the problem with trying to look to one play in a game or two plays in the game. You want to look at the totality of it all. And the totality of it all is your defense couldn't stop anything as far as the Niners go. If they wanted to run, they could run. If they wanted to throw, they could throw. Their quarterback, their rookie quarterback, their quarterback who's a rookie and limited from a talent standpoint, was able to slice and dice you apart. This team will get better with more talent. I'm not saying that. And the future is bright and rosy and looks great. It absolutely does. But with you as a team, this defense, it's going to need more than just talent. It's going to need coaches that get them edges on game days from time to time. It's going to be in putting them in positions to succeed rather than at times seemingly setting them up to fail, as we've seen this defense in varying positions being set up to fail. Those four-man fronts you saw earlier this year, where the two defensive linemen are here and the outside linebackers are here, and it's stressing all of them to try to get in there and play the run right. It's getting them out of their natural gap alignments, not setting your players up to succeed. And I can't help but wonder if some of the defensive struggles come from this year, not just the lack of talent, but do come back to, again, you've got to upgrade and improve the schematics of what's going on in this defense because it is just not working as is. Certainly, Geno's decision-making on those two turnovers wasn't great. But I would argue that part of the reason why you see those turnovers from him in that moment is he feels like he's got to put Superman's cape on and go fly out in the wind because the offense needs to score every single time because the defense can't stop anything. That pressure starts to mount in there rather than the quarterback just playing within himself. I don't expect if we get into next year and we get a better interior offensive line that can pass protect a little bit better than someone has failed through the end of this year, including one of those fumbles in this game where Fuller basically blew his block at the center coming in for Blythe immediately. Once you improve that a little bit, you'll get better Geno, right? Once you have a running game that can consistently get more holes created for it, so Kenneth Walker doesn't have to dance like John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever on every carry, and there's actually some holes to be had there that he can take advantage of, Geno is going to play better. I have a lot of optimism for those things to occur simply by improving the talent. It's harder to say the same thing about the defense solely. It will help. It will improve things. But when you walk away from today, you go, boy, more of what I saw from this defense this past year. And I have to wonder if this is on the heels of you just moving to a new defensive coordinator. This is on the heels of you supposedly this offseason making major changes en route to try to fix the problems that have plagued this team going back for a few years. This Carroll defense hasn't just been bad this year. It wasn't just bad last year. It wasn't just bad the previous year. They've been trying to turn this over and find an answer for this for years. And the answer always seems, or the answer to the question always seems to come back to, it's only simply talent. That's just what we need, just talent. I offer to you that it's a little bit more than that. I still have faith in Coach Carroll. I still have faith in this organization. I love this future. I love the fact we have this draft coming and this money to spend, and you have a big-time method to inject this team with a lot of life, with a lot of talent, and to push yourself forward even into next year into a championship-like process. But you don't want to be held back by some weak Achilles heel that has been going on now for years. You want to try to correct that. You want to try to fix it. Or it could be the thing, once again, that eventually trips you up. It was a tough game today, but we did hang into it. And hey, we got the Niners to sweat a little bit. You can't tell me at halftime they weren't sitting there with little droplets going down each side of the temples, and they're like, there's no way this couldn't really happen, could it? And we almost did it. So we at least made it interesting for a little bit of time, and they are certainly a way more talented ball club than we are. I wouldn't deny that. That is at the head of this, is that they are in their Super Bowl window right now. We're just beginning to to etch towards aspiring to get to our Super Bowl window. So there is certainly a difference on those two things, but I don't think that these are mutually exclusive. I don't think that it's simply merely just talent or scheme. I think it can be a bit of both. And if the Seahawks this offseason with the front office and coaching staff apply both, getting the improvement in talent and the improvement, especially defensively schematics, the sky is the limit for this team. A championship future certainly would be en route. And I don't see those same kind of changes necessarily needing to be made on the offensive side of the ball. You do need more mobile offensive linemen, so you can do more of the outside zone stuff. You can do more of the screen stuff, getting those linemen out into space to where they can get on those blocks on safeties and corners and linebackers with some depth. That stuff would be nice to have in the offense too, but the offense was fine this year. That was not the problem. And they weren't the problem today either. They were going along just fine until it got to the point where they had to score on every single possession. And you don't want to ever have to ask your offense to score on every single possession. That's not a pathway to success. So I feel good about this team still. I feel great about this year. A tough loss today. The future is absolutely bright, but I think that it is completely valid from Seahawks fans to question and wonder whether the direction of this defense is going in the right place or not. And again, let me parse this out correctly. This is not me calling for a Coach Carroll's head here. This is me just putting into question whether or not maybe there's a little bit too much from Coach Carroll as far as influence on the defense, and it's not being allowed to run purely. I feel like when you hired your last four defensive coordinators have all basically come from within house, you're not looking for a lot of outside ideas at that point. You're looking for a little bit more of the yes men like approach to things. And right now, I feel like we need a little bit more of the outside the box type ideas being applied here rather than trying the same old, which has failed for now kind of years on end and expecting different results. But once again, let me not cover this up. It was a beautiful season at the end of the day. People said we had the worst roster in all of football, that we would be competing with the Houston Texans for the number 1 overall pick. And we have gotten into the playoffs. We got to 9 wins. We showed a lot of signs of life. We showed we're a lot further ahead than we're further back. And that in itself is to be absolutely encouraged by, to be psyched by, to be hopeful by. So again, the future is completely bright here. I don't want to poo-poo it. And it was a tough loss today. You hung in for a half, which was good to see. There's some questions about the future, but now we get to go in this draft with 4 picks in the first 2 rounds, 10 picks in total in the entire draft, somewhere in the neighborhood of about $50 million to spend. It's a lot of ammunition to work with. It's a lot to go out there and help to improve this team. And they are going to take those improvements. They're going to take those steps forward. You're going to go out there and watch them kill this draft. So let's see the Seahawks team turn the corner this offseason, hopefully, make the adjustments that are needed. Let's keep the faith, my fellow Seahawks fans. It was a fun season. I had a great time enjoying it with those folks in my chat as we do the live stream every game day Sunday. You guys were awesome. Appreciate you. We'll get on into next year. Hopefully those Niners don't get a Super Bowl just after the Rams did. Boy, all of them would become pretty insufferable pretty quickly if they aren't already. But we'll just see how the rest of this playoffs goes. My name is Brandon Kane. This is the Hawks Nest. Thank you so much for watching. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. But now, more than ever, please don't ever forget. Go Hawks!